So if you press the cogwheel button on your remote control, this will bring up a bar at the bottom of the screen, which will display various gaming related information. Hello everyone, Vincent here from HDTV Test here. LG has started rolling out a new firmware update for the C1 and also G1 OLED TVs. Now I'm using a 65-inch LG C1 here, and if we long press the cogwheel button on the remote control, this will bring us to the user menu, and let's go into support, click on software update, and you can see that I've installed the latest version of 3.15.27. Now this new firmware update adds a few new features, and probably the most prominent one is going to be what the company calls game dashboard. So if you press the cogwheel button on your remote control, this will bring up a bar at the bottom of the screen, which will display various gaming related information ranging from the frames per second, the black stabilizer setting, and also what sort of game genre within the game picture preset, and also whether you have auto low latency mode engaged or not, and also whether you have AMD FreeSync or NVIDIA G-Sync, and also just HDMI 4 and VRR engaged. And obviously, if we go into the game optimizer menu by clicking on this button here, then you can see that there is a more polished skin as well. And you can see that you can toggle the game genre from here, but as I showed earlier, you can actually do it directly from the game dashboard. And then if we go down, you can turn the game dashboard off as well. And what this means is that if you turn it off, and if you actually press the cogwheel button, it will just bring up the regular menu. Now let me go back into the game optimizer menu and turn it back on again. And I think one concern some people have is that whether if you engage this game dashboard outside of game mode, if you press the cogwheel button, whether it will still bring up the game dashboard, and the answer is no. So for example, let me just try and get out from here, and if I switch off this Xbox console, and if I press the cogwheel or settings button on the remote control, you can see that it brings up the regular menu, because we are outside of game optimizer mode already. But let's say if I actually start the Xbox Series X again, and then if I press the cogwheel button on the remote control, it will bring up this game dashboard. So I think it is, to me, probably sensible to just leave it on, because it gives you some sort of idea of what you're actually getting when playing a game. And if we go into the game optimizer menu again, and what we'll do is to go down all the way and show you that VR and G-Sync is engaged. And new for this firmware, and since the last firmware, AMD FreeSync Premium can now be engaged, and you will still get Dolby Vision support. So I will show that later. And then go down, this fine-tune dark area setting is to actually mitigate any VRR gamma issues. And you can also change the color of this new game optimizer menu. So the default color I think is violet, but you can also change it to green or change it to orange, depending on your personality and what looks best, with your own taste. And I'll just choose violet because I think it suits my personality, a bit dark, a bit mysterious. And if I can go into the 4K TV details menu on the Xbox, I also want to show you that obviously since the last firmware update of 3.11.23, Dolby Vision gaming has been supported at 4K 120Hz, but some of you may have missed that. So once you install this 3.15.27 firmware on your C1 or G1 OLED, you will start being able to enjoy Dolby Vision gaming at 4K 120Hz, as you can see from this screen here with all green ticks. But another improvement that LG has made since 3.11.23 is that when I tested that firmware, I found that when I started a game in Dolby Vision, it will default to the Cinema Home Picture preset. But on this latest firmware of 3.15.27, 27, you can see that it defaults correctly to game optimizer mode with ALLM or auto low latency mode engaged. So again, well done to LG for responding so quickly and fixing this issue. Obviously, I think, none of the games are natively in Dolby Vision yet, but I think with more games coming out in Dolby Vision, at least with an LG OLED, the C1 and also the G1 currently, you can have the peace of mind and reassurance that it will support all the main things that a proper gaming TV needs to support, ranging from 4K 120Hz Dolby Vision. If I can actually summon up the information bar, FreeSync, G-Sync, open standard, HDMI forum, VRR, UHD 120Hz and stuff, so all of these parameters are all supported on one set, simultaneously together. And I don't think there are any other TV brands on the market that can support all these. Let's say if you go with the Samsung TV, and on the point of the Samsung TV, I have to be honest that when I first saw the game dashboard that LG has designed for this firmware on the C1 and G1 OLED, it struck me that, they may have been inspired by the game bar on Samsung TVs. I mean, that's the flattering way to say it. Another way to say it is that, it's basically copied from the concept of the game bar on Samsung's 2021 Neo QLED televisions. But I think, it certainly gives very useful information to gamers at a glance. You can see the refresh rate, you can see the VRR and also ALLM status. And obviously, for the most accurate picture, I would always select the standard game genre. But if I can get up from here and get to the point of saying that, Samsung TVs don't even support Dolby Vision, so you certainly won't be able to enjoy 4K 120Hz Dolby Vision gaming with a Samsung TV. And I think, most of other HDMI 2.1 TVs on the market are using the MediaTek SoC, let's say Sony and Panasonic. And as a direct result, 4K 120Hz gaming and also Dolby Vision are mutually exclusive. What this means is that, let's say if you play a game at 4K 120Hz, you definitely cannot play in Dolby Vision. And if you play in Dolby Vision, you're only capped at 4K 60Hz. So if you want a combination of both Dolby Vision and also 4K 120Hz, I don't think, there is another TV brand that offers that at the moment besides LG Electronics. And this brings me to the status of 4K 120Hz Dolby Vision gaming for previous LG OLEDs, including 2020 sets such as the CX or C10 OLED and also the GX or G10 OLED. And the status is that currently LG is working on a beta firmware, and soon they will be making this beta firmware available for request. You just need to call LG's support phone line in your own country when the beta firmware is ready, and then they will send you a link to download the firmware. And the reason why they do this is because they wanted to fast track this beta firmware for those of you CX or C10 owners who really need it. Because I think if you left it to LG, they will probably take their own sweet time troubleshooting and debugging this firmware for a long time to see whether there are any stability issues before rolling out to the public. So if you want to get your hands on this firmware as soon as possible, you will have to call up LG. And also, this brings me to 2019 sets, the LG C9 owners. And I think the current status is that LG cannot commit to adding 4K 120Hz Dolby Vision gaming support to the LG C9 at the moment, but they are trying their best. I think they are looking into it. And the reason why they cannot commit is because even though some of you LG C9 owners claim that the capabilities of the LG C9 exceeds that of the LG C10 or CX and also the LG C1, the reality is that they are using different SoC. So the LG CX or C10 uses the O20 SoC, and this has the HDMI 2.1 FRL signaling or fixed rate link signaling baked within the SoC itself, whereas with the C9 they are using an additional switch chip which adds HDMI 2.1 functionality. And as a result of this, you obviously get to enjoy 48 gigabits per second of HDMI 2.1 bandwidth, whereas the HDMI 2.1 bandwidth on the LG CX is capped at 40 gigabits per second, but this means that there is a fundamental difference between the chipsets of the C9 and also the C10 or CX, and that's the reason why LG cannot commit to supporting 4K 120Hz Dolby Vision gaming on the LG C9. Just hope for the best, but don't get your hopes up. That's all I can say. And before I end this video, I also want to show you a couple of minor improvements with regards to this latest firmware of 3.15.27 on this LG C1. And the first one is definitely when it comes to the WebOS 6.0. And I think that when I first reviewed the G1 and also the C1 on previous firmwares, I had a slight complaint that the UI can be a bit laggy. It is not as responsive as I would like it to be. But you can see here that after this firmware update, it feels slightly snappier to me. And I think this applies to the picture menu as well. Let's say if you actually long press the cogwheel button on the remote control, you can see that it is a bit more responsive, I would say, when I scroll to various things. And I think LG clearly makes the best gaming TV on the market at the moment. I think there are some owners of other TV brands who claim that picture quality is more important, but when you look at what LG has done and how they have been so responsive to the demands of gamer, adding all these features, Dolby Vision, 4K 120Hz gaming, FreeSync, G-Sync, HDMI forum VRR, they are really going after the gaming market. And if you are a gamer and if you own an LG C1 and G1, I think as the receptionist at your local massage parlor would say, you are in good hands. If you'd like to watch some of our other videos on LG's 2021 OLED TVs, I created a playlist here if you'd like to click on it, and I will see you in the next video.